till I came here.
Resident Evil 4 OG. It's a good game. That's an understatement. This is my first Resident Evil game ever. There's been how many since then? Shoot, how many before then? Yeah, I played this originally on the PS2 and I haven't played it since. Yeah. It was fun though. It was nostalgic, memories. Obviously back then you probably really don't remember a whole lot anyway, but it's funny, I don't really remember playing it, but I remember getting it. I already talked about it in the remake video. But I was at GameStop obviously, and this is like back in the early GameStop days, and I was getting The Evil Within, this, Last of Us, Wolfenstein. What's funny is that this Tekken 5, things like that. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, or Tony Hawk's Underground. But this was PS2. This was like, that was the first actual legitimate console I ever owned. I didn't have a 64 till way later. Never had a PS1. Didn't have an Xbox. I had a Game Boy Color, if that counts. Game Boy Advance. And eventually PS3, PSP, etc. PS4, PS5. PS4 Pro, if you want to count that. But God, me and this game just goes so far back. The most relevant games I could replay today, since years ago or whatever, most of those would have been like PS3 games. PS2 is kind of pushing it because it's like, well, getting your hands on Tekken 5 isn't really as easy or accessible. You'd probably have to have some kind of subscription for it, or find it online, or GameStop obviously, or just some kind of obscure way to get a lot of those games. Tony Hawk's Underground, whatever other PS2 games I've ever played. Onimusha is a big one. We didn't even remaster that till how long ago? Yeah, obviously Resident Evil is big enough where to get those games of that era today really isn't that hard to do. There's so many different ports and so many different versions and consoles, and it all gets kind of a little crazy, but thankfully like this and 5 and 6, for example, are pretty easy to get your hands on. But yeah, no emulators, no weird thing, no like Steam type deal. No, I'm not playing like the GameCube version or Wii or whatever the hell there was back then. For me, it's all about the PS2. Like, everyone will say, oh, it's the Wii version, blah blah blah. It's like, dude, get that out of here, man. Like, this is one of the games that is PlayStation, that is the PS2. It's what defined that console for me, and one of the few first reasons why I started to get into PlayStation and Sony as much as I always have been. Like, this Onimusha represents the console so well, considering where it's from, Capcom. It just all kind of ties together in a nice way. It just makes sense. Japanese, Japan, yeah, blah blah blah. Horror, Resident Evil, survival horror. It just all kind of works together. So not only was this my first Resident Evil, but it's obviously what got me into every game since then. It helped get me into the console that I now call home, basically. It means a lot to me. Like, I didn't play this game on every single thing I possibly could have. I haven't played it more than 2 times now, the first time and now. I don't know, it's just good. Like, you really can't go wrong. This is one of the most popular Resident Evils for a reason. It's kind of that fine line between its strong suit with 1, 2, 3, you know, Nemesis, young Leon, Jill, the Mansion, Chris. But this is right before it got kind of weird with Chris and Sheva and Africa and 6 and 7 and 8 and all the spin-offs and the remakes and yeah, this game's definitely special. Just because of all that, though, definitely doesn't mean it's perfect by any means. Like, when I played again, I was like, oof, this is rough, dude. The controls, and like, it took me a minute to really kind of get used to it again. And but it's funny though, because me and this game have such a history, and I've watched so much gameplay and streams since then. And when I finally played it myself again, it was so rewarding and so like. But it wasn't quite what I thought either. Like, when you watch someone else play, they make it look easy just because you're not the one actually playing, whether they're actually good at the game or not. It's just more of a perception thing. Once I started playing again, I was like, whew, these controls, dude. It's weird because it doesn't play like 1 and 2. Or, I guess 1 and 0. It doesn't play like the remakes. It doesn't play like the spin-off feed stuff. It doesn't play like, I mean, 5, not so much 6, I suppose, but the closest you can probably gameplay or whatever, just playing it in general, it's probably be about 5. It doesn't play like 7 and 8. Obviously, it doesn't play like the remakes. You don't have that full control, the camera control, and this and that, but you don't have like the pre-rendered backgrounds either. This very early on experimental, over-the-shoulder, third-person. It's like the GoldenEye of Resident Evil. It's kind of that Godfather of like, you know. Now we're starting to dive into some different territory here. And it really revolutionized and changed and evolved the Resident Evil franchise. I want to say industry, which is funny because that wouldn't make sense, but considering everything Resident Evil, the shows, the movies, the games, like, dude, they've been busy. Industry would not be far off from the. Like, you almost can't even just call it simply a franchise or series anymore. It's gone so far beyond that. Like, it's kind of trippy. Yeah, the cutscenes are good.
You are a long way from home, cowboy. You have my sympathies.
Guess that's a local's way of breaking the ice. Anyway, you know what this is all about. My assignment is to search for the president's missing daughter.
What? All by yourself?
Yeah, you got Leon, you got Ashley, the Las Plagas. This is when they started to get away from T virus, G virus, blah blah blah. God, I love Leon. He's a good looking, handsome man. He's inspiring, even though he kind of looks like a boy band guy. But he's like that attractiveness level of like Cloud Strife from Final Fantasy. He's got this perfect hair. It's weird though, because you'd almost think he styles his hair, but some people probably have normal hair like that, which is weird. It's all straight and perfect. I don't know, he's just a badass. He knows what he's doing. He's trained, he's experienced, all these things. Like, he's all grown up. I like his voice, his character model. When you compare it to the remake, it's like a night and day difference. This version of Leon is so superior. He's the alpha, he's the dominant beta, the omega. That's another thing, comparing it to the remake, it's just like, dude, this game has so much more charm. The sound effects, the audio design, the atmosphere, the vibes, it's all there. There's literally like none of that in 4. Does 4 remake play better and get better gunplay and gameplay and quality of life and UI? And I mean, yeah, all it is a modernized version of this. As much as I hated, as hard as this game is, the controls, the combat, it's so worth it because you get such a good quality package out of it. It's so, you know, everything's there. It's like that simple arcadiness slash, like, this game's actually giving an effort and it's trying. It really represents when it came out and that time and the technology at the time and just the kind of darkish days, not darker days, but darkish. Definitely not anything like today at all. Yeah, the game decently looks good. It's obviously been like upscaled a bit. The cutscenes still look a little weird. I sort of noticed with some of these games, like, they'll kind of really bump up just the game in general, but the cutscenes is kind of like a whole nother thing apparently. I don't know. Yeah, it's just enjoyable. Like, I shared my experience with others, but obviously it is a great game to just play by yourself in the dark in your room. It's very immersive. Good immersion. It's like spooky, but not too spooky. Very definitive, like, action horror style. You know, we all have things that are pure and untainted and the first and OG and this is such in the middle ground of like the strength of Resident Evil and what it can do, what it's capable of. But yet we're obviously veering way off the road here somewhere, like going into unknown territory. I mean, it's funny because since this game, this is about where Resident Evil's been at since then with everything they've done. Like, nothing's really been or felt the same ever because as it used to be before this. I mean, granted, back in the day, did I play all these original games as they came out? Not necessarily. 0, 1, 2, 3. I'm not even gonna bother like knowing the exact history and the release dates and this and that, because like it's too much. The one thing I can say is I did play this back in the day. Maybe not like day one, but I definitely, it's probably like what, $20 at the time. not far off from what it could be about now, really. Base price, whatever. Maybe it's on sale, I don't know. I actually rebought this game on the PS2, which is funny because I don't even have a PS2. But I just got it to collect it because it was just such a good game. That and some other classics. Even though those old PS2 games, even used, they're not exactly cheap. Because if you want to play them natively on their native console, that really is the best way to do it. Like, having a better console and a better monitor and all that is nice. It can make a difference. But it just always feels kind of off, because it's like, well, it may or may not make it actually look better. Yeah, you can probably be using a better controller, all these different elements that go into it, but it's not quite... Like, some people go out of the way to natively play some of these older games today. And it confuses me because I'm like, why would you do that? It's so inconvenient, and it's just easier to just get it on the most recent thing that you got, and hello, it just makes sense. Why make something more complicated for yourself than you have to? But at the same time, I kind of get it, but then it becomes a question of, is it worth it? I'd rather just do it the easy way, honestly, myself, but whatever. Yeah, all the characters are here. I love that this is the same exact game. Like, it may or may not feel like it plays differently, or it's harder or easier than it used to be, or because of the technology we have today. There's a lot of things that can kind of alter that memory you have of originally playing these older games, but all in all, it's still the exact same game, so... Then obviously you have this, and then the remake. And I'm actually glad the remake came out, because you don't realize how... I think you take advantage of how good original RE4 is because of the remake, and then the remake comes out, which should be better, but it's not. But it is. I played this originally back in the day, so I didn't like the RE4 remake at all. RE2 and 3 remake was great. Whatever version is out right now, the normal one you probably normally get of 1 and or 0 or whatever, those are good too. But I never played their predecessors, the same exact game, but just it's all 8-bit and pixely and just not for me. See, those games are just too old. Even this game is kind of cutting it pretty close. Because my tolerance level is just... It doesn't go that high. But that's the beauty of this game, is that it really does kind of feel like a newer, older, modern-ish game. And I kind of love how twisty and messed up it all kind of is, because it... I mean, that's the era I grew up in. Nothing was ever really defined or done a certain way. Like, things just felt like they were changing and changing slowly throughout the years, and RE4 is like a good bookmark or staple of that, of most of my life, half my life. You know, watching things slowly change before my eyes, just whatever it may be. Whether it's technology, or whether it's the people around me, the things that I do, or everything. This game helped me become who I am today and shape me into who I am and help me understand things, and it's a great... I can't really call it a zombie game, but it's a great zombie-ish game. It's a part of the influence I had on these kind of darker titles and music and games and movies and shows, and I just got fascinated as a kid. Like, Like, this is so cool. I don't know what I'm doing or but I'm enjoying it. I'm having a good time. There's a very big influence on me versus like things could have been so different any other way. It could have been into like a completely different genre, and I don't know who I'd be today. I try not to like think about that, but yeah, the gameplay is good. Yeah, overall a good time. I feel like I keep saying that. I just get kind of giddy when I'm able to talk about games like this, and maybe I'm only playing it now or doing a video now because I put it off for a certain reason, or I wanted to save the best for last, or depending on when I get a hold of a game and actually play it, and kind of my whole process, like when I get to talk about certain games and express, you know, half the games I played, I don't really feel like I just, you know, this is all very raw. It's one take. There's no script. There's no nothing. This is just, it's not premeditated, nothing. Maybe subconsciously, but like, it's just so rewarding and comfortable, and to talk, like, to do something about a game that I actually like. I feel like it's so rare I get to do that. And it just makes kind of making content and doing these type of things so much easier, because I can kind of actually enjoy it, which I think is such a, you know, granted, to me it is just another game. It's something to play, it's something to stream, it's something to make a video on, all these things, but I'm normally not open about that kind of thing too much, because that's exactly the thing, is so much of what I end up doing is kind of just, yeah, whatever, here and there. I'll still put in the effort, and I do care at least enough to make an effort, whatever. But this is just so like natural, and so it just makes sense, and it just feels good. It's those things that kind of make you go a little bit more out of your way, or appreciate it more, or it's just context of how I feel about this game. You know, when I get to take advantage of kind of this sort of like slightly higher elevated thing I was able to do, it's kind of, I don't know, it's hard to like push that out there, and I don't know. But yeah, probably took me about like 30-ish hours, 35 hours. Probably took me about a week to play. Pretty average, normal playthrough, to be honest. There's some tough times, but I don't feel like I ever really got stuck. I was actually really lucky towards the beginning. This is what I was trying to say earlier, but never finished or something. Like, me and this game are connected. We have that history. I feel like I was able to get through it. It's not like I'm just playing. There's a lot of people I've come across that may have only just now played Resident Evil 4, both the original and the remake, obviously, just recently. And I'm actually very lucky to have had played it back in the day, and was able to kind of play it for what it was, and what it should be, and what it is, and what it could be, all these things. So there's just a lot more perspective on it, because you know, we go back 10 plus years. I mean, wow. I mean, shoot, if we're thinking like PS2, 10 to 15 years, that would honestly make a lot more sense. Middle school, high school, I don't know. Nah, I don't know about high school. I'd say more like middle school. Actually, yeah. Because I specifically remember having a PS2 around that time, because where I was living and after school and you know, the apartment I was at. I don't remember playing a whole lot of games though, other than like Grand Theft Auto Vice City, getting mad at Tekken 5, throwing my controllers everywhere, Mortal Kombat, Shaolin Monks and Deception and Annihilation or whatever. God, it's just such a fun time, this game. It's hard to have too much to say about it today because it's like, well, you know, it's an older game. There's been so many games that's come out since then, let alone Resident Evil. So it's kind of all convoluted but man, back in the day, this is one of the prime games to play. It was legendary games like this and like Halo and Skyrim that you just really defined gaming in general, I would say. This would have been my survival horror go-to, easily. I never got into Silent Hill back in the day, unfortunately. I don't know how or why, which is, I don't know, just never happened, I guess. You'd think that would have been right up my alley though, but it just didn't work out for some reason. Yeah, it was a good time. You just can't go wrong with Resident Evil in general, especially 4, and it still does to this day have a very active community. Still going strong, still going hard, which is good to see. Like, a piece of me from back then, today, because of this game, is still very much alive, and that flame is burning, and it's weird because it makes me feel old, but it doesn't, because it's still like a relevant game, so it makes me feel relevant still in a way. Which is kind of funny. But you know, you hear about people like, oh, back in my day, back in my time, back in Nom. It's like, hey man, Pac-Man and stuff was a little too much for me, dude. I wasn't even alive. But to have something to say about a game back in the day, and it being this of all things, this game specifically, you know, it fills you up with hope. It fills you up with faith and like belief and like everything's okay and it's fine. And just, I don't know. I guess the biggest thing to get out of this whole deal is like, you gotta, if someone hasn't played Resident Evil 4 yet, I don't know how to help you. You need help. You have to play this. I can't imagine who hasn't played it. The only people I can imagine that hasn't played this yet is like someone that's not even born yet, or like, you know, some kid who's just too young to, I don't know. Like, how the hell, I can't even start to think about that. It's just gonna get me all riled up. Yeah. Resident Evil 4.